I'm Gabby from Natural Practices. I wanted to share a case with you that I had this week. Actually, it was really quite heartbreaking because this little 3-year-old was literally covered from head to toe in eczema. And I mean burning eczema, burning red, weeping, in incredible distress and obviously pain at times as well. So for a parent, I mean, it must be absolutely heart-wrenching to see your child experience this, but also the late nights, being up because the child is scratching, the change in the sheets because the skin is bleeding. And all the time we're being given advice by the medical profession. Try this cream, now use these steroids, use this antibiotic because it's getting infected. And it must be so hard to know where to turn, especially when you keep trying different things and nothing's really changing. So in this particular case, the parents were told, we're now at the point where we need to use immune suppressants. So for a 3-year-old, the reason why this may not be a great idea from a naturopathic point of view is that the immune system is very much like a child. So it needs to learn how to crawl, it needs to learn how to walk, and then it needs to learn how to run. So if it's not learning with little viruses here and there, having a bad cold, lots of snot, and having a bad stomach sometimes, if it's not learning early on, what's going to happen later on down the line? So if immunosuppressants are used, then yes, the skin probably will clear up and the child would be certainly more comfortable. So absolutely that choice is very tempting. But the long-term effect of a suppressed immune system from a young age is that you're suddenly wide open to infection and literally diseases later in life, maybe even viruses, bacteria, parasites, etc. So what can we do in cases of absolute extreme eczema? Well, these are all naturopathic suggestions. They may not be things that the doctor suggests, but they're definitely things to bear in mind. I think it's very tempting when there's actually weeping eczema that's coming through the clothing, even onto the bed sheets, to keep bathing a child or even yourself, because for some people they find that the baths really help. You know, that cold water seems to cool down that external fire that's occurring in the skin. But actually, water, tap water that we're putting in the bath does contain chlorine, but it also contains lots of other elements, some of which can be very irritating. It's very, very drying to the skin. And as a nation, we've become so used to bathing every single day, but that's not actually normal or healthy for the skin. So ideally we should be bathing maybe twice a week. I kept pushing the parents saying, you know, is there a reason you're bathing? Are the oils clogging on the skin? Because with some of these steroid creams, they form, not just the steroid creams, but some of the barrier creams as well, they form a very thick layer. And you almost need to take that layer off before putting the next lot on. But actually your skin has a whole ecosystem of its own, a microbiome, just like we have in the gut. So if the skin is constantly, if that microbiome and that community is being destroyed by the chlorine, which is, it kills things off, that's why it's put in swimming pools, then the ecosystem can't form. And so that natural barrier that's there on the skin and that natural ecosystem can't thrive as it should do. When there's many forms of antibiotics, which is often given because the skin has become infected, then that ecosystem internally is also disrupted. So it's so difficult because, say with a 3-year-old, the skin is literally on fire and you're trying to get the child as comfortable as possible. But over a transition period, the idea is to start to bathe just twice a week. Now we have this natural flora on the skin, so we need to support that natural flora. And ways that we can do that are either using a natural-based oil, such as a vegetable-based oil, or even using good, proper, good, clean tap water that has been filtered. And in either of those, we're adding probiotic. So let me just go back to the base that this probiotic would go in. When there's very hot eczema that's weeping, we wouldn't really want to seal the heat in with an oil. Now that's quite tempting because obviously that barrier has been disrupted and the skin's very dry. But by using an oil, it can seal the heat in and cause more problems. One way that we can tell if heat is a problem isn't just by the redness on the skin, it's by looking at the tongue. So if the tongue is very, very red with lots of heat spots, there is an internal heat which is trying to come out. If it's just a normal healthy pink colour, then you could use an oil on that skin and that would be fine. Otherwise, a nice quality filtered water, and into that you open a probiotic. So there's lots of different types out there. Generally we're looking for something containing bifidobacteria and some lactobacilli. But you open a probiotic, you shake whatever it is that you've got that in, so maybe a little spray bottle, and that will probably last about a week or so. But experiment with this. So use a body part that is really quite bad and weepy and sore, and just every day, twice a day, use that probiotic solution and spray it onto that body part, and continue using everything that the doctor suggested on the rest of the body. So we can see, is that working? Is that really making a difference? Now there's something called topical steroid withdrawal, and this is where the body goes into this massive reaction from not having steroids on the skin every single day, and it's very uncomfortable and it can keep the child awake at night. So it's a slow process, but one of the suggestions would be to use something very natural. So natural creams on the skin. So we've sprayed one arm, for example, with the probiotic solution. On the other arm, or on a patch of the body, maybe just a small patch like this, try using a more natural cream. So that would be something with containing perhaps vitamin E that allows the skin to heal. Maybe there's retinol in there, which is a form of vitamin A. There may be essential oils, or it may be very plain because things can irritate the skin. I really like Hope's Relief Cream, which is, I think it's an Australian product. I also really like the creams by Gabby Lamplugh. She's local to us, she's in Wilmslow, and she makes prescriptive creams. And they're all really natural and they're lovely. So you can Google her, Lamplugh, and Gabby isn't spelt like mine, it's Gabby. And then the other thing to think about is diet. So one of the things that I'd suggest isn't just cutting out things like gluten and dairy, because they are big triggers, they're well-known triggers for skin, but it's also thinking about foods that contain histamine. Now, histamine is inflammatory to the mast cells and it's inflammatory to the body. Histamine is in everyday food, so things like strawberries and tomatoes and maybe ham. I'm trying to think what a child would eat. Maybe sausages. So anything that's smoked, anything that's packaged, and it's certainly in certain fruits and vegetables as well. So Google it and have a look at trying to follow a low histamine diet. Now also the skin needs really good fats. So whilst we might be using something on the skin, we need to oil the skin from the inside out. And we do that with good quality fish oils, providing there's no allergies here. We probably want to get a soy or lecithin free fish oil. There's some really good quality ones. I think there's Lionheart, that's a nice pure one. But for a child, we'd want fairly high amounts. I mean, the child's brain grows through having enough fat, but also we've got to support the skin, so there needs to be this whole healing process that's occurring from the inside out. It's hard to manage such a severe condition when the skin is very weepy and irritated, but look at what the alternatives are. It is going down a route of eventually suppressing the child's immune system, which isn't really that much of an option in my opinion, when it could cause so many long-term effects. Consider as well that herbs can be really powerful at cleansing the underlying systems. So we know that if there is a lot of heat and the tongue is very red and there's weeping, that we need to focus on some key organs. So again, this is quite a naturopathic point of view. So we need to support the liver. The liver is the main body's filter, and blood is passing through it every 3 minutes. The fact that there's weeping there is involving the lymphatic system. So that lymph really needs supporting. The body's trying to replenish this all the time. So the child would probably be quite thirsty. and need those fluids replacing, but we need to clean that lymph. The lymph is trying to keep the blood clean, so it's obviously getting polluted somewhere along the line, probably from diet. So this goes back to making sure the diet is as clean as possible, so gluten-free, dairy-free, and low histamine. And then the other internal organ that we need to support are the kidneys. Again, the kidneys are filtering the blood permanently. So the skin is an external expression of what is happening internally. So we know that the microbiome inside is disrupted. Probably those internal organs are overwhelmed, especially if there has had to be courses of antibiotics just to keep the child comfortable, and obviously if the skin has got infected. So the types of herbs that we use are ones that have a slightly antifungal element. They are supportive to the liver, they help the lymph and the kidneys. So these are things like nettle, for example, red clover, which is a wonderful lymphatic. We use chamomile, which is very calming to the system. We use marigold or calendula, which is a really good antifungal and again supportive to the lymph. Herbs for children are amazing because you can make them as a tea, but then basically use that fluid as a base to ice pops. So your child could have a daily ice pop and it actually be their medicine, as it were. But you can use that fluid in smoothies, maybe in their porridge. Making a tea from herbs isn't overly strong, depending on which herbs that you're using. And actually you can be quite inventive as to how you do that. So smoothies are always a good way. I do find my children like the whole ice pop method because they just feel like they're getting a treat. I would suggest if you have any specific queries relating to really severe eczema, then do get in contact with us. But I did want to do a shout out today. This is to the CNM students. Thank you so much for listening to my videos. I do appreciate it. So thank you, Kerry Lee. Thank you, Yolanta, Christine, Emma, Laura. They're the people that I spoke with. It's so great to hear that people are actually gaining something from this. So I appreciate it and feel free to put comments below. That's it for now. And next time I will talk about dry eczema. So this was all about quite weepy eczema. Next time we'll talk about dry. Bye for now.